The beginning of the end started with a locked door. Amanda never locked doors in our house. It wasn't her thing. She always said she liked an open flow, no barriers between us, no secrets. But that evening, as I walked down the hallway to grab Lily's blanket from the laundry room, I noticed our bedroom door was closed. The knob turned tight. I paused. My hand hovered over the handle, my knuckles brushing against the cool brass. Amanda was inside, her voice low and quick, like she was trying to keep something hidden. "Yeah, I know," I said. "Tomorrow. Stop freaking out. Okay? I've got this." Her words weren't meant for me, but my chest tightened anyway. I felt an unfamiliar tension wrap around my ribcage, something dark and instinctive. She was pacing, her steps were muffled by the rug, but the rhythm was unmistakable. Back and forth, back and forth. I knocked twice, hard enough to be heard. "Amanda? You okay in there?" Her footsteps stopped. Dead silence. Then, a scramble, like she was grabbing something, shoving it away. "Yeah," she called, her voice suddenly cheerful, too cheerful. "I'm fine, just on a work call. Give me a minute." I waited a beat, the hallway feeling colder than it should. Then I knocked again, louder this time. "Why's the door locked?" I asked. Her reply came slower this time, like she was trying to think her way through a trap. Lily kept barging in earlier. I didn't want her to see. I'm wrapping a gift. For her. Christmas. You know? Christmas was 6 weeks away. Something about her tone didn't sit right. I stood there, staring at the door like it was a puzzle I needed to solve. Amanda and I didn't lock each other out. That was one of our unspoken rules. And yet, here I was on the wrong side of a barrier that wasn't supposed to exist. I should have let it go, I know that. I should have shrugged it off, told myself I was imagining things, walked back to the living room to finish the basketball game I'd been half watching. But instead, I leaned closer, pressing my ear to the wood. That's when I heard it, a vibration short and sharp. A phone, set to silent, buzzing against a hard surface. I could hear her fumbling with it, cursing under her breath. "Just stop calling me," she hissed. That's all I needed to hear. "Open the door, Amanda." My voice was calm, too calm, like I was trying to convince myself I wasn't furious. "Caleb, seriously? I'll be out in a second. Open the door." The knob twisted, and when the door creaked open, Amanda stood there, her hair slightly mussed, her expression tight. Her phone was nowhere in sight. She gave me a practice smile, the kind she reserved for awkward PTA meetings. "What's with the interrogation?" I stepped inside, ignoring the way she tried to block the doorway. The room looked normal. Our bed unmade, her laptop open on the desk. But something felt wrong, like I was walking into a staged scene. "I heard you on the phone," I said, watching her carefully. Her eyes widened, just for a split second, before narrowing into annoyance. "It was work. You're being ridiculous. Who keeps calling you?" Amanda crossed her arms, leaning against the bed frame. "Why does it matter? It's just Dana from marketing. She's freaking out about some campaign deadlines." I didn't buy it, not for a second. Amanda was quick-witted, but her lies always came with this edge, like she was daring you to call her out. "Let me see your phone," I said, my voice firm now. Her laugh was sharp, like shattered glass. "What? No. Since when do we police each other's phones? You don't trust me now. Just let me see it." "You're being insane, Caleb." I took a step closer, and for the first time in years, Amanda flinched. Her hand went instinctively to her pocket. Too late. I grabbed her wrist, gently but firmly. "If it's just Dana, show me." Her jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually let me see. Then, with a swift motion, she yanked her arm away and turned on her heel. "You know what? I don't have to deal with this right now." She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. "Where are you going?" I called after her. "To get some air. Maybe you should do the same." She slammed the door behind her, leaving me standing in the middle of our bedroom, surrounded by shadows that seemed darker than usual. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the space she'd left behind. Then, slowly, I walked over to her desk. Her laptop was still open, the screensaver swirling lazily. It only took one click to wake it up, and there it was, A message thread. Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. My breath caught in my throat as I scrolled further. The messages weren't work-related. They weren't friendly. They weren't innocent. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Amanda wasn't just lying. She was orchestrating something behind my back, something that would rip our family apart. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just a crack in the glass. It was a full-blown fracture. I sat there, staring at the messages on Amanda's laptop, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. The words blurred together as I scrolled. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. When he's gone, call me. I'll come over. Miss you already. The messages weren't from a coworker. The name on the thread read Ryan. No last name, no photo, just a name, one I didn't recognize, attached to words that felt like shards of glass being pushed under my skin. I wanted to scream, to throw her laptop across the room, but I didn't. Instead, I sat there, frozen, trying to piece together how the woman I thought I knew better than anyone could be someone entirely different. Last night, the phrase echoed in my head. Last night, Amanda had said she was working late, catching up on campaigns that were falling behind. We texted back and forth, casual, normal. She'd even sent me a selfie of her sitting in her office, holding a coffee mug. But now I knew that wasn't her office. I clicked out of the thread, my hands trembling, and opened her search history. I felt like a stranger breaking into someone's life, invading their privacy. But this wasn't privacy. This was deceit. Hotel reservations. A booking from 2 days ago under her name at a boutique hotel downtown. A receipt for dinner, steak, and a bottle of wine. My stomach churned. She planned this. I closed the laptop and stood up, pacing the room. My reflection in the mirror caught my eye, but I didn't recognize the man staring back. His jaw was clenched, his eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling. What now? What the hell do I do now? The front door opened downstairs, snapping me out of my thoughts. Amanda was back. My pulse quickened as her footsteps echoed up the stairs. She had no idea what I'd found. When she walked into the bedroom, her face was calm, like nothing had happened. She tossed her purse on the bed and let out an exaggerated sigh. I swear, Caleb, you're so paranoid. I went for a drive to clear my head, and now I'm ready to talk like adults. I stared at her, struggling to control the anger bubbling up inside me. Talk like adults? I repeated, my voice low. Yes, she said, crossing her arms. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this jealous streak is really... Who's Ryan? The color drained from her face. For a split second, she looked like a deer caught in headlights, but Amanda recovered quickly. She tilted her head, her lips twisting into a smug smile. Ryan? What are you talking about? Don't, I said sharply, cutting her off. Don't lie to me again. I saw the messages. Amanda. On your laptop. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. That Ryan. Her expression hardened, her smile disappearing. You went through my laptop? Seriously, Caleb? That's... Don't make this about me. My voice was louder now, angrier. Who is he? She rolled her eyes, like I was some overdramatic fool. He's a friend. From work. We've been working late together, and maybe the messages sounded flirty. But it's not what you think. Cut the crap, I snapped. Hotel reservations? A dinner for two? You think I'm that stupid? Her jaw tightened, her eyes darting around the room like she was searching for an escape. For the first time, she looked cornered. Fine, she said, throwing her hands up. You want the truth? Yes, I've been seeing him, but it's not what you think. I laughed bitterly. It's not what I think? You're cheating on me. Amanda, what the hell else could it be? She didn't flinch. Instead, she crossed her arms and stared at me like I was beneath her. You don't get it, Caleb. You've been so boring lately. Stuck in your routine. Obsessed with your stupid job. Ryan, he makes me feel alive again. Something you haven't done in years. Her words hit me like a slap. I staggered back a step, my mind spinning. You're blaming me? For this? Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, this wouldn't have happened, she said coldly. I stared at her, stunned into silence. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the Amanda I married. This Amanda was cruel, calculated, and unapologetic. "Lily is in the next room," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "You're doing this to her too. To us." Amanda shrugged, her indifference cutting deeper than her words. "Lily will be fine. Kids adapt. Don't make this bigger than it is." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I'd built a life with, the mother of my child, was treating our family like it was disposable. "I'll tell you one thing, Amanda," I said, my voice steadier now, colder. "She'll remember my love, and she'll know what you've done to us. You'll pay for everything you've done to me and to her. Revenge begins." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't say anything. She just grabbed her purse again and left the room, slamming the door behind her. I stood there in the silence, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. After Amanda stormed out of the room, I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the doorway like she might walk back in and tell me it was all a sick joke. But she didn't. Hours passed, the house silent except for the faint hum of the fridge and the occasional rustle of Lily's blanket as she shifted in her sleep. My mind wasn't silent, though. It raced, a chaotic tangle of anger, disbelief, and a grim, steely resolve. Amanda wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She had burned our life to the ground, and she didn't even care. Fine. If she wanted a war, I'd give her one. The first step was control. I wasn't about to let Amanda call the shots anymore. Not with me, and especially not with Lily. She thought she could live two lives, wife and mother by day, someone else's lover by night. But she was about to learn how wrong she was. The next morning, I woke early and began gathering evidence. I wasn't some helpless victim. I had tools at my disposal. Amanda wasn't as smart as she thought. Leaving her laptop unlocked, her phone constantly buzzing with reminders of her deceit. She'd gotten sloppy, cocky. That was her mistake, and I was going to exploit it. Her laptop was my first target. I combed through her messages, taking screenshots of every incriminating text, every flirty emoji, every hotel confirmation. It wasn't just Ryan. There were fragments of other messages, hints at other late-night meetings that made my stomach churn. Then I accessed her email. Her passwords weren't hard to guess. They were the same ones she'd used for years. Inside, I found receipts, photos, and calendar invites, evidence she'd never expected me to see. And then I hit the jackpot, Ryan's email address. Perfect. By the time Amanda came downstairs, dressed in her usual too-perfect-for-morning outfit, I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking my coffee like nothing was wrong. Lily was already eating her cereal, her innocent chatter filling the room. Amanda breezed in, kissed Lily on the head, and glanced at me with that same smug expression she'd worn last night. "Morning," she said, her tone casual, almost chipper. I didn't reply. I just sipped my coffee, watching her. She frowned, but before she could say anything, Lily interrupted. "Daddy, can we go to the park today?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said, smiling at her. Then I looked at Amanda. "Why don't you come with us, Amanda? Spend some time as a family." She hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I have a lot of work to do today. Maybe later." "Work, right?" "Sure," I said, keeping my tone even. "You always seem so busy these days." Her eyes flickered, a brief flash of unease crossing her face. But she recovered quickly, brushing past me to pour herself a cup of coffee. That was fine. She could pretend all she wanted for now. After breakfast, I took Lily to the park as promised. Amanda stayed behind, claiming she had errands to run. I didn't ask where she was going. I already had a good idea. At the park, I sat on a bench, watching Lily play on the swings while I made my next move. Using Ryan's email address, I drafted a message. Subject: important. Let's talk. Body: Ryan, we need to meet. Tonight. You know where. This can't keep happening without us figuring out what's next. I hit send, knowing exactly what kind of chaos it would cause. When Lily and I got home, Amanda was gone. I didn't bother texting her to ask where she was. Instead, I checked the location tracker I'd secretly installed on her phone weeks ago when I first started noticing the signs. She was downtown, not at the office. When she came home later that evening, her hair freshly tousled and her makeup slightly smudged, I knew where she'd been. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. She greeted Lily with the same forced enthusiasm as always. But when she turned to me, her expression was guarded. How was the park? Great, I said smoothly. Lily had a blast. That's good, she said, avoiding my eyes. I waited until Lily was asleep before making my move. I sat on the couch, Amanda scrolling through her phone across the room. So, I said casually, who's Ryan? Her head snapped up, her face a mixture of surprise and anger. Seriously, Caleb? We're doing this again. Yeah, I said, leaning forward, my tone cold. We are. Before she could respond, I held up my phone and showed her the screenshots. Her messages, her emails, the hotel reservations. All of it. Her face turned pale, her mouth opening and closing as she struggled to come up with an excuse. But I didn't give her the chance. You think I don't know where you've been? I asked, my voice rising. You think I don't know what you've been doing? With him. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Don't bother lying, I said sharply. I've seen enough. For the first time, Amanda looked genuinely scared. But then, just as quickly, her expression hardened, and she crossed her arms. Fine, she snapped. You want the truth? I've been seeing Ryan. And you know what? It's your fault, Caleb. You're boring, predictable, and suffocating. I needed something more. I stared at her, the weight of her words settling over me like a heavy blanket. You've destroyed this family, I said quietly, my voice trembling with rage. But you're not walking away from this unscathed. Her lips curled into a smirk, her defiance shining through her fear. What are you going to do about it? She asked, her tone dripping with venom. I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because Amanda had no idea what I was capable of. Amanda thought she'd won that night. When I didn't answer her taunt, she brushed past me with that smugness she wore like armor, retreating to the bedroom while I sat on the couch, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. I didn't follow her. Instead, I waited, listening to the sounds of the house settle around me. The creak of the floorboards as she moved upstairs, the soft hum of the heater kicking on, the rhythmic tick of the clock on the wall. Everything felt too loud, too sharp, like my nerves were frayed wires sparking in the dark. My phone buzzed, and I glanced down. It was a reply to the email I'd sent as Amanda earlier that day. Ryan, I was hoping you'd come around. 9 p.m., same place. Don't make me wait this time. My teeth clenched. He thought he was talking to her. He thought this was some game they were playing, sneaking around behind my back like a pair of smug, self-satisfied puppeteers. Fine, I'd meet him, but it wasn't going to be the conversation he expected. I stayed on the couch for hours, letting the plan form in my mind. Amanda was in our bed, probably texting him under the covers, completely unaware that her perfect little lie was beginning to crumble. I wasn't going to explode in rage. I wasn't going to shout or plead. That would only give her more power. No, I was going to dismantle her life piece by piece, just like she'd done to mine. At exactly 8:30, I grabbed my keys and left the house without a word. The bar Ryan had mentioned wasn't far, some sleek, overpriced lounge in the city where the lighting was dim, and the drinks were served in glasses that cost more than they should. When I arrived, I didn't rush inside. Instead, I parked across the street, watching through the large windows as people came and went. I spotted him almost immediately. Tall, well-dressed, a little too polished. He sat in a corner booth, his body language relaxed as he scrolled through his phone, waiting for her. I took my time, letting the moment build. At 9:05, I crossed the street and stepped inside. The bar smelled of citrus and liquor, the soft hum of conversation filling the air. I ignored the hostess and walked straight toward him, my shoes clicking against the polished floor. Ryan, I said when I reached the table. He looked up, his confusion quickly replaced by recognition, or maybe just fear. He didn't know who I was, but he knew why I was there. I don't think we've met, he said cautiously, his voice low. We haven't, I replied, sliding into the booth across from him. I'm Amanda's husband. Ryan's face paled. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He glanced around, probably wondering if he could escape without making a scene. Don't bother, I said, my tone sharp but controlled. You and I are going to have a little chat. He swallowed hard, setting his phone down. Look, man, I didn't save it. I interrupted. I've seen the messages. I know everything. So don't insult me by pretending you didn't know she was married. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his confidence evaporating. I didn't mean for this to happen. She told me you two were basically done, that you were just staying together for the kid. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Is that what she told you? Let me guess. She also said I was controlling, distant, maybe even a little abusive. He didn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. Thought so, I said, leaning forward. Let me tell you something, Ryan. Amanda is a liar. She's been lying to both of us, manipulating us to fit whatever version of the truth benefits her the most. And you're just another pawn in her game. He looked down at his drink, his hands fidgeting. I didn't know. No, you didn't. But you do now. I stood up, towering over him. Stay the hell away from her. If I find out you've so much as texted her again, I'll make sure everyone in your life knows exactly what kind of man you are. Your job, your friends, your family gone. Ryan nodded quickly, his face pale. I get it. I'm done. I swear. I stared at him for a moment longer, making sure he understood just how serious I was. Then, without another word, I turned and left the bar, leaving him to sit there with the weight of his decisions pressing down on him. As I drove home, a grim satisfaction settled over me. That was one piece of Amanda's house of cards dealt with. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. When I walked through the front door, Amanda was sitting on the couch, her arms crossed, her face a mask of annoyance. Where the hell were you? She demanded. I didn't answer. I just walked past her, heading upstairs. Caleb, I'm talking to you, she shouted, following me. At the top of the stairs, I stopped and turned to face her. You'll find out soon enough, I said coldly. Her eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering across her face. But she didn't press further. I closed the bedroom door behind me, locking it this time. Amanda wanted to play games, to push me to my breaking point. She didn't realize I wasn't breaking. I was strategizing, and the clock was ticking. The next morning started like any other. Amanda pretended we hadn't had a fight the night before, slipping into her role as the composed wife and mother like nothing was wrong. She made Lily's breakfast, chatted about school pickup times, and kissed her on the forehead before sending her off to the bus stop. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, watching Amanda with an intensity one knew made her uncomfortable. Every movement, every carefully placed smile, was another thread in the web of deceit she'd spun around herself. She could act all she wanted. I saw through her now. The moment Lily was gone, Amanda turned to me, her cheerful mask slipping. Are we going to talk about your little disappearing act last night? She asked, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. Not much to talk about, I said, setting my coffee down. I handled something that needed handling. Her eyes narrowed, searching my face for cracks. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch. Amanda hated silence. She thrived on control, on steering the narrative. This was the first time in years she didn't have the wheel, and it showed. It means, I said slowly, I know everything. I've seen the messages, the emails, the hotel receipts. I've spoken to Ryan. Her reaction was instantaneous. A flash of panic that she quickly masked with anger. You what? You heard me? I said, standing up. I met Ryan. Told him exactly what kind of person you are. And guess what? He's done with you. Amanda's composure cracked for the first time. Her mouth opened, then closed, as if she were trying to process what I just said. You had no right to. I had every right. I snapped, cutting her off. You think you can destroy this family, lie to my face, and parade around with some other guy without consequences? You thought I wouldn't fight back. Her lips twisted into a sneer, her panic giving way to defiance. Fight back? Please, Caleb. You're pathetic. Always so predictable, always trying to play the hero. But guess what? This isn't a fairy tale, and you're no knight in shining armor. I took a step closer, my voice low and cold. No, Amanda, this isn't a fairy tale. It's a tragedy, and you're the one who wrote it. Her bravado faltered. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to lash out to keep fighting. But instead, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind her. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Instead, I picked up my phone and made the second call of the day. The first had been to a lawyer, a no-nonsense divorce attorney recommended by a friend who'd gone through something similar. This one was to Amanda's boss. The meeting was scheduled for the afternoon, but I didn't tell Amanda. She thought she had all the time in the world to keep up her charade, but I was about to flip her world upside down. When I arrived at her office, the receptionist gave me a polite smile. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Dana," I said. She glanced at her screen. "Do you have an appointment?" "She's expecting me." A minute later, I was sitting across from Dana, a sharply dressed woman who looked both curious and mildly annoyed. "Caleb, right?" she said, leaning back in her chair. "Amanda's husband?" "That's me." I placed a folder on the desk between us. "I'm here because I thought you should know what Amanda's been doing during her late nights at work." Dana frowned, her eyes darting to the folder. "What are you talking about?" "Open it," I said simply. She hesitated, then flipped open the folder. Inside were printouts of Amanda's texts and emails to Ryan, along with the hotel receipts and timestamps that matched the nights she'd claimed to be working overtime. Dana's expression hardened as she read. "She told us she was pulling double shifts for the campaign," she said, her voice tight. "We've been bending over backward to accommodate her." "She wasn't working," I said flatly. "She was cheating, and she's been using company time and resources to do it." Dana closed the folder, her jaw clenched. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention." I nodded, standing to leave. "One more thing," I added, pausing at the door. "You might want to look into her expense reports. Something tells me this isn't the only thing she's been lying about." As I walked out of the building, I felt a grim satisfaction settle over me. Amanda thought she could manipulate everyone around her, but her web of lies was unraveling faster than she could spin it. When I got home, Amanda was waiting for me, her arms crossed and her face stormy. "Where were you?" I smirked, tossing my keys onto the counter. "You'll find out soon enough." Her eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering across her face. "What are you planning, Caleb?" I didn't answer. Instead, I walked past her, heading upstairs to check on Lily. Amanda had lit the match. She thought she could control the fire, but now the blaze was out of her hands. Amanda didn't sleep that night. I could hear her pacing downstairs, her footsteps like the ticking of a bomb. She was waiting for me to slip, for the cracks in my armor to show. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. The next morning, I acted like nothing had changed. I woke up early, made breakfast for Lily, and got her ready for school. Amanda barely said a word. She hovered near the kitchen island, sipping her coffee and glancing at me like she was trying to decode a secret message. It was only after Lily was on the bus that she cornered me in the hallway. "What the hell are you doing, Caleb?" she hissed, her voice low and venomous. I turned to face her, my expression calm. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play dumb with me," she snapped. "You've been acting all smug and cryptic, and I know you've been meddling." I shrugged. "Meddling? That's an interesting word. Would you prefer standing up for myself? Or maybe just finally calling you out on your lies?" Her face flushed, a mix of anger and panic. "You're not as clever as you think," she said, her voice shaking. "Whatever you're planning, it won't work. I've covered my tracks." I laughed, a low, humorless sound that made her take a step back. "Amanda, you haven't covered anything. You've left a trail so obvious a blind man could follow it." For a moment, her bravado faltered. But then she straightened her spine and sneered at me. "You want to destroy me? Fine. But you'll go down with me. Don't think for a second you'll come out of this unscathed." "Keep telling yourself that," I said, brushing past her. "We'll see who's left standing." Around midday, I got the call I'd been expecting. It was Dana, Amanda's boss. "Caleb," she said, her voice clipped. "I've reviewed everything you sent me, and we've taken the necessary steps. Amanda's no longer employed here." I let the words sink in for a moment before replying. "Thank you for taking this seriously. She's lucky we're not pursuing legal action," Dana added. Her expense reports were creative, to say the least. but we're more focused on moving forward. I understand, I said. Thanks again. When I hung up, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. It wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about consequences, something Amanda had been avoiding for far too long. That evening, Amanda came home later than usual. Her face was pale, her expression tight. She slammed her purse onto the counter and turned to me, her eyes blazing. "You went to my job?" she demanded, her voice shaking with rage. "I did," I said simply, leaning against the couch. "You had no right," she screamed, her hands balled into fists. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've ruined me." I tilted my head, pretending to think. "You mean like you ruined our marriage? Or like you've been ruining Lily's stability with your lies?" Amanda lunged forward, pointing a trembling finger at me. "This isn't over, Caleb. You think you're so smart, but I'm not going to let you win." "Win?" I repeated, my tone icy. "This isn't a game, Amanda. This is our life, our family, and you're the one who threw it all away." Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the kind born of regret or guilt. They were the tears of someone who hated losing control. "You've always been so self-righteous," she spat. "Always playing the victim. Maybe if you'd actually been a good husband, none of this would have happened." Her words cut deep, but I refused to let her see the pain they caused. Instead, I straightened up, my voice steady. "You can blame me all you want," I said, "but we both know the truth. And one day, so will Lily." That struck a nerve. Amanda flinched, her mask of anger slipping to reveal something closer to fear. "You wouldn't," she said, her voice quieter now. "Wouldn't what? Tell her why her mom and dad aren't together anymore? Why she has to split her time between two houses?" "Oh, I will. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but when she's old enough, I'll tell her everything. And she'll see you for who you really are." Amanda's breath hitched, her confidence crumbling before my eyes. For the first time in this whole ordeal, she looked truly defeated. "I'll fight you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If you try to take her away from me, I'll fight you with everything I have." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so it was just above a whisper. "You don't have anything left, Amanda. You've burned every bridge. Now it's just a matter of time before the ashes settle." Her lips quivered, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned and walked out the door, slamming it behind her. I stood there in the silence, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. This wasn't the end, not yet, but it was close. Amanda thought she could play with fire without getting burned. She was wrong. Amanda didn't come home that night. I wasn't surprised. She'd been losing control piece by piece, and after losing her job, her dignity, and the upper hand, she was bound to run to whoever would give her even a shred of validation. Maybe it was Ryan, or maybe she was just driving aimlessly, letting her anger carry her wherever it pleased. Good. Let her stew in it. Meanwhile, I had my own moves to make. As soon as I got Lily to bed, I pulled out my laptop and began compiling everything I'd gathered so far. The texts, the emails, the expense reports, and the timeline of Amanda's lies. This wasn't just about divorce, it was about custody. Lily didn't deserve to be in the middle of Amanda's chaos. She deserved stability, love, and honesty. All the things Amanda had proven she couldn't provide. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. I was going on the offensive. The next morning, Amanda's car was in the driveway when I woke up, but I didn't see her in the house. Lily was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with her cereal, swinging her legs back and forth as she hummed to herself. "Morning, sweetheart," I said, ruffling her hair. "Hi, Daddy," she said with a bright smile. "Is Mommy still asleep?" I didn't answer right away. "Probably," I said finally, keeping my tone light. "Let's let her rest for a bit." But I wasn't going to let her rest for long. Around mid-morning, I found Amanda sitting in the backyard, a cup of coffee in her hands. She looked worn out, her hair messy and her face pale. For a fleeting moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the lies, the betrayal, and the look on Lily's face the night I tucked her in, knowing she had no idea her world was about to change forever. "Rough night?" I asked, stepping outside. Amanda didn't look at me. "I don't want to fight, Caleb." "Neither do I," I said. "But we need to talk." She sighed, setting her coffee down on the table. Fine. Say what you need to say. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table between us. This is everything I've collected, proof of your affair, your misuse of company resources, your lies. I've also spoken to a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. Amanda's head snapped up, her eyes widening. You're serious? Completely, I said. And I'm going for full custody of Lily. Her jaw tightened, the shock on her face quickly replaced by anger. You can't do that. You have no idea how ugly this will get if you try. Oh, I do, I said, my tone ice cold. But let me be clear about something, Amanda. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of your threats, your tantrums, or your lies. I've seen what you're capable of, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect Lily from it. Amanda laughed bitterly, shaking her head. You really think you're some kind of hero, don't you? Always playing the victim, always acting like you're better than me. But you're not. You're just a bitter, pathetic man who can't handle the fact that his wife wanted more. Her words stung, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. I didn't want it to come to this, Amanda. I tried to be civil. I tried to keep this between us. But you crossed every line, and now you're going to face the consequences. You don't get to destroy our family and walk away unscathed. She glared at me, her hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. You think you can take her from me? I don't think, I said firmly. I know. The next few days were a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings with my lawyer, and quiet moments with Lily where I tried to shield her from the storm brewing around us. Amanda was erratic. One moment she was cold and distant. The next she was pleading for another chance, promising to fix everything if I would just drop the divorce. But I didn't drop it. Couldn't. Amanda wasn't just a liar. She was dangerous, reckless, and selfish. She'd already shown she was willing to prioritize her own desires over Lily's well-being, and I wasn't going to let her drag our daughter down with her. One night, after Lily had gone to bed, Amanda cornered me in the living room. She was holding a glass of wine, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with something I couldn't quite place. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice trembling. Why can't we just move past it? Move past it, I repeated, my voice incredulous. Amanda, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, a series of choices that shattered our family. There's no moving past that. Her lip quivered, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But instead, she set her glass down and squared her shoulders. Fine. You want to play dirty? I can play dirty too. If you think I'm going to let you take Lily from me, you're delusional. I stood up, towering over her. And if you think I'm going to let you keep dragging us through your mess, you're the one who's delusional. The room was thick with tension, the unspoken words hanging between us like a loaded gun. Amanda wanted to intimidate me, to break me, but I wasn't breaking. Not now. Not ever. Remember what I said? I told her as I walked away. You'll pay for everything you've done. To me, to Lily, to this family. Revenge begins, Amanda. And it starts with you losing everything you thought you could keep. Her silence followed me up the stairs. But I didn't care. The game wasn't over yet. But I was holding all the pieces. Amanda's world began to collapse piece by piece, just as I'd planned. Her confidence, always her most dangerous weapon, was starting to fracture under the weight of everything she tried to juggle. She had no job, no allies, and no idea how to regain control. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub her face in it. I stayed calm, calculated, and 2 steps ahead. That was worse for her because it left her grasping for something, anything, to cling to. She flailed while I built my case, making sure every move I made was airtight. The custody hearing was approaching fast. My lawyer had filed the paperwork for emergency custody, citing Amanda's neglectful behavior, erratic actions, and lack of stability. The evidence I had gathered painted a damning picture. Late nights, lies, her reckless use of resources, and a clear disregard for Lily's well-being. Amanda knew she was losing ground, and it was driving her mad. One night, as I was sitting in the living room going over documents, Amanda barged in, her face flushed with anger. You think you're so clever, don't you? She snapped. You think you've got me backed into a corner? I set the papers down and looked up at her, calm as ever. I don't think it, Amanda. I know it. Her laugh was sharp and bitter, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. You think this is justice? Ruining me? Taking Lily away? You're just as selfish as you claim I am. Selfish, I repeated, standing up. Selfish is lying to your family. Selfish is putting your needs above your child's. Selfish is thinking you can have it all and destroy the people who trusted you in the process. Don't you dare throw that word at me, Amanda. You don't get to rewrite the narrative anymore. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. You're going to regret this, Caleb. I'll make sure of it. I stepped closer, my voice dropping to a dangerous calm. No, Amanda. You're the one who's going to regret it. You thought you could betray me, hurt Lily, and walk away unscathed? Look around. This is what you've done. Not me. You. For a moment she faltered. Her breath hitched, and I could see the cracks spreading across her carefully crafted mask. But then, just as quickly, her expression hardened again. You'll never win, she said through gritted teeth. I stared at her, unflinching. I already have. The next morning, Amanda made her next move, and it was as desperate as I expected. She showed up at Lily's school unannounced, trying to pull her out early. Thankfully, I'd already informed the administration about the custody situation and filed an order to keep her from making unilateral decisions about Lily's schedule. When the school called me, I drove over immediately. By the time I arrived, Amanda was in the front office arguing with the principal. You don't understand, she was saying, her voice loud and panicked. I'm her mother. You can't just keep me from taking her. Actually, I said, stepping into the room, they can. Amanda whirled around, her eyes blazing. What are you doing here? Protecting Lily, I said firmly. I turned to the principal and handed her a copy of the court order. As you can see, Amanda doesn't have the right to remove Lily from school without my consent. The principal nodded, her expression neutral but firm. We're just following protocol, Mrs. Andrews. Amanda looked at me like she wanted to rip me apart, but I didn't give her the chance. You're spiraling, Amanda, I said quietly. This isn't about Lily. This is about you trying to salvage control. But it's over. You've lost. Her face crumpled for a moment, genuine panic flashing in her eyes. But she quickly turned on her heel and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night, after I'd tucked Lily into bed, Amanda cornered me in the kitchen. She was quieter this time, her voice low and trembling. Caleb, she said, her tone almost pleading. You don't have to do this. We can work something out. For Lily's sake. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. For Lily's sake? You had plenty of chances to think about Lily. Every time you lied, every time you prioritized your own desires over her needs, you made your choice. Now, I'm making mine. Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I'd once loved. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. She's my daughter too, Amanda whispered. And I'll never keep her from you, I said firmly. But she deserves better than what you've given her. She deserves stability, honesty, and a parent who puts her first. Can you honestly say you've done that? Amanda didn't answer. She just stood there, her silence louder than any excuse she could have made. I walked past her, pausing at the doorway. This isn't about revenge anymore, Amanda. This is about doing what's right for Lily. If you can't see that, then you've already lost more than you realize. Her sobs followed me up the stairs, but I didn't look back. The fall was almost complete. The silence between Amanda and me stretched for days. It wasn't the tense, seething kind of silence. It was emptier, like the quiet after a storm has flattened everything in its path. She barely looked at me, barely spoke, and when she did, her words were clipped and brittle. I knew what was coming. Amanda wasn't the type to simply accept defeat. She was desperate, and desperate people made desperate moves. It came late one night, when I was sitting in the living room reviewing court documents for the upcoming custody hearing. Amanda walked in, her hair disheveled, her eyes dark and puffy. She was holding her phone in one hand, a glass of wine in the other. I'm not going to let you win, she said. Her voice slurred just enough for me to notice. I glanced up at her, unimpressed. Go to bed, Amanda. You're embarrassing yourself. Her laugh was harsh, almost unhinged. You think this is embarrassing? Wait until the court hears what kind of husband you really are. I raised an eyebrow, setting the papers down. What are you talking about? She smirked, holding up her phone. I recorded us, Caleb. Every fight, every argument, every little moment where you weren't perfect. Do you think a judge is going to side with someone who yells at his wife? Who slams doors? Who's emotionally unstable? I stared at her, the weight of her words settling over me. Amanda wasn't bluffing. She was holding on to every scrap of leverage she could find, twisting it into a weapon. You're unbelievable, I said, my voice low. After everything you've done, you still think you can spin this into my fault? You're damn right I can, she snapped, taking a step closer. Because you're not the hero in this story, Caleb. You're just a bitter, pathetic man trying to punish me because I had the nerve to want more. I stood up, towering over her. More? You wanted more? You had a family, Amanda. A husband who loved you, a daughter who adored you, and you threw it all away for... What? A fling? A fantasy? You don't want more. You want destruction. Her hand trembled, gripping the wine glass like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. For a moment, I thought she might throw it at me. You think you're so righteous, she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. But you don't know what it's like. You don't know how suffocating it was, being with you. I needed to feel alive again. Her words stung, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I leaned closer, my voice as cold as ice. And now? How does it feel, Amanda? How does it feel to watch everything you built burn down because you couldn't keep your lies straight? You feel alive yet? Her breath hitched, and for the first time, I saw the depth of her regret. Or maybe it was just the regret of being caught. You're a monster, she said, her voice trembling. No, I replied. I'm the mirror, and you hate what you see. The next morning, Amanda made her final desperate move. She took Lily. I woke up to an empty house. Lily's bed was unmade, her favorite stuffed animal gone, and Amanda's car was nowhere in sight. Panic clawed at my chest as I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I called the school next, but Lily wasn't there. That's when I knew. Amanda had run. I immediately called my lawyer, then the police. The custody order was clear. Amanda couldn't take Lily without my consent, especially not overnight. Hours turned into an agonizing day as we tracked her movements. My lawyer pulled every string he could, coordinating with the authorities to issue an emergency order for Lily's return. I spent the day pacing the house, every creak of the floorboards or buzz of my phone sending my heart racing. Finally, late that evening, I got the call. They'd found Amanda. She was holed up at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, Lily asleep in the back seat of her car. When I arrived at the scene, the police were already there. Amanda was arguing with them, her face streaked with tears, her voice frantic. She's my daughter, she shouted. You can't take her from me. Mommy! The small, trembling voice stopped me in my tracks. Lily peeked out from the car, her wide, tear-filled eyes locking onto mine. Daddy! She cried, running toward me. I scooped her up, holding her close as she sobbed into my shoulder. My anger melted away in that moment, replaced by a fierce, protective love. It's okay, sweetheart, I whispered. I'm here. I've got you. Amanda watched from a distance, her hands cuffed behind her back. She looked broken, defeated. Please, she said, her voice cracking. Don't take her away from me. I stared at her, my heart heavy but resolute. You did this to yourself, Amanda. All of it. She broke down, her sobs echoing in the cold night air as the officers led her away. That night, I tucked Lily into bed, stroking her hair as she drifted off to sleep. The storm was over, or at least the worst of it. Amanda was gone and Lily was safe. As I sat in the quiet of the living room, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The betrayal, the lies, the chaos. It had all come crashing down, leaving only ashes behind. But in those ashes, I saw a glimmer of hope, a chance to rebuild, to create a life for Lily and me that was free from Amanda's manipulation and deceit. She would remember my love, and she would pay for everything she did to us. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The courtroom was silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Amanda sat across from me, her once confident demeanor reduced to quiet desperation. She was dressed sharply, her lawyer at her side, but her eyes betrayed her. She wasn't fighting for Lily anymore. She was fighting for the scraps of a life she'd torn apart with her own hands. My lawyer, Andrew, stood to deliver our closing statement. He was calm, direct, and relentless. Everything I needed him to be. Your Honor, he began, his voice steady. This case is not about one parent trying to alienate the other. It's about ensuring the best possible environment for Lily. The evidence we've presented shows a pattern of deception, instability, and choices that prioritize personal desires over the welfare of a child. My client has remained steadfast, focused, and committed to Lily's well-being throughout this entire ordeal. He is the parent who provides the stability, honesty, and care that Lily deserves. Amanda's lawyer objected, trying to paint me as controlling, unyielding, even vindictive. But their arguments fell flat under the weight of the evidence. The hotel receipts, the texts, the reckless decision to take Lily without consent. It all painted a picture that couldn't be ignored. When the judge finally spoke, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. After reviewing the evidence and considering the testimonies, I find that Mr. Andrews is better equipped to provide Lily with the stable environment she needs. Sole custody will be granted to Mr. Andrews, with supervised visitation rights for Mrs. Andrews. Amanda let out a sharp gasp, her composure breaking. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering something, but she shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Caleb, she said suddenly, her voice cracking, please, don't do this. Don't take her away from me. I stood up, looking directly at her. For a moment, I saw the Amanda I'd once loved. The woman who'd laughed with me, dreamed with me, built a life with me. But that Amanda was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. This isn't about me, Amanda, I said quietly. It's about Lily. She deserves better than this. The bailiff escorted her out of the courtroom as she sobbed, her cries echoing in the stillness. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of adjustments. Lily and I moved into a new house, a smaller, quieter place with a yard where she could play. I kept her routine as steady as possible, enrolling her in the same school, maintaining her playdates, and filling our home with warmth and laughter. At first, she asked about Amanda constantly. When will Mommy come back? Does Mommy miss me? I answered gently but honestly. Mommy loves you very much, I said, stroking her hair. But she made some choices that mean she can't be here with us all the time right now. It's not your fault. Okay? Never think that. Over time, the questions became less frequent. Lily started to smile more, laugh more. She was resilient, stronger than I'd given her credit for. Amanda's supervised visits were tense at first. She showed up on time, dressed impeccably, with forced smiles and overly cheerful greetings for Lily. But Lily was wary, hesitant. She clung to me when Amanda arrived, her small hands gripping my shirt as if afraid I might leave her. I never did. I stayed in the background during their visits, watching carefully but silently. Amanda tried to make the best of it, but the cracks were still there, just beneath the surface. One day, during a particularly strained visit, Amanda looked over at me, her eyes filled with something that looked like regret. Caleb, she said softly, once Lily had stepped away to grab her coloring book. I know I've made mistakes. I've hurt you, but do you think there's ever a chance to fix any of this? I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. Fix it? No, Amanda. Some things can't be fixed. But we can do better, for Lily's sake. She nodded slowly, her shoulders sagging. For Lily. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a step forward. Months turned into a year, and the pieces of my life began to fall into place. I watched Lily grow stronger, more confident, her laughter filling the empty spaces Amanda had left behind. I found a new rhythm, a new purpose in being the parent Lily needed me to be. And Amanda? She faded further into the background. Her visits became less frequent, her calls sporadic. She was trying to rebuild her own life, but it wasn't my job to rescue her anymore. That chapter was closed. One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me with her big, trusting eyes. Daddy? She said softly. Yes, sweetheart. I love you. You're my favorite person in the whole world." Tears pricked at my eyes as I leaned down to kiss her forehead. "I love you too, Lily. Always." In that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice. Amanda had tried to break me, but she hadn't succeeded. She'd underestimated the strength that came from loving someone more than yourself, from fighting for what truly mattered. She would remember my love, and she would live with the consequences of everything she had done. But as for me, I was done looking back. My future was in front of me, and her name was Lily.